my name is Nick Alverson. I'm an anthropology student, as we kind of discussed a little bit. Primary focus within anthropology is the archaeological side of things, so it ties in a lot with just artifacts in general. I did recently, just before coming back this semester, pick up the public history minor. I've always had a Civil War era studies minor, but I picked up the public history minor because of my internship I had over the summer, which was working in a heritage center that was kind of morphing into more of a museum side project of theirs, I guess. And I enjoyed it. I loved every second of it, so I decided to pick up the public history. So I chose a federal double bag knapsack, 1855. The artifact itself is pretty self-explanatory. It's just like any backpack that you would see today, except it was federally issued. So the model was designed in 1855, but it was heavily used in the Civil War for Union forces. So this knapsack would be, identical to the ones that I had. Many ancestors that fought in the Civil War, multiple that were here at Gettysburg. And they would have carried these bags exactly as they are, and I just think there's something super interesting about that, especially whenever I look at my family heirlooms and the different things that, my grandfather has in his attic or wherever it is that he keeps them in the dusty corner. I feel like whenever I see those objects at home, I can kind of envision them, some of them being like in a bag, for example. Like there's a letter from Fredericksburg, in the Battle of Fredericksburg, whenever they were camped outside. And I can almost guarantee you that, my great-great-great-grandfather would have had it with him, or wrote it with right next to the bag, or had the pen or the ink in the bag with him. So it all ties together one way or another, and I just think that's a fascinating aspect. My great-great-grandfather Douglas was in the 102nd PA Volunteer Infantry. I had another third great-grandfather who was in the 9th New York Cav, and I had one. He wasn't here at Gettysburg because he was injured before Gettysburg and was mustered out due to it, but he was in the 67th PA Volunteer Infantry. And there's countless others too. Those are the three that I can remember off the top of my head. But the fact that at least I know of two of them that were here is pretty cool. My the third great-grandfather in the 102nd PA Infantry, their regiment, their entire regiment wasn't actually here. They only sent a detachment of 100 volunteers to come to Gettysburg for reinforcements on the second and third day. And my third great-grandfather's name is in the PA monument. So that's how I know he was one of the 100 that volunteered to come here to reinforce. I thought about this a long time. I think I've settled on intimate as being the one word I would choose. There's a lot of words I could choose, but I think intimate's probably the best one, because the knapsack is a very intimate object if you look into it further than face value. Like it was kind of like the mobile home of the soldier in a way, because they decided what they wanted to carry in it. Some of them decided that, contraband that wouldn't be allowed in the camps would go in it. Some of them decided that, pictures of loved ones, if they had them, would go in it. Others were more utilitarian. They would put socks and sewing kits and other things in there. So I think it really encompasses like I said, the mobile home of the individual soldier. But I think just the fact that you can look into it and the types of objects soldiers had in them, it really gives you an identity of somebody who can't provide that identity for themselves anymore. I think the soldiers really had a lot of them had a very similar lifestyle to anybody that you would see today, just in a different time period, different context. But I think it's extremely similar to even just soldiers today. I mean, they still have knapsack variants, right? They have a bunch of different types of bags that they use today. Most of them are for certain things, whether it be a med bag or anything, but the knapsack of the Civil War, it was kind of like unofficial what you would, use it for. Like anything, any extra room you had in it past the necessary material that you would need as a soldier. My big thing with history is I really like how if you understand the past, you can understand the present better. And in understanding the present better, you get a better grasp on what the future might look like. So through different analytical lenses looking at the past, you can get to that present point, and you can look at the present in a couple different ways. But from there, you can kind of gauge what direction you want the future to go into, or what direction you think the future might go into. So that's probably the most important thing with it. And kind of like I said, with the modern day soldiers versus the Civil War soldiers and the different types of bags that they would carry, I think it kind of gives you that perspective of like, okay, well, the soldier is the soldier is the soldier, whether it be, an old time ancient Roman soldier or a Civil War soldier or a modern soldier today. I feel like they're all kind of similar in certain ways when it comes to that. One thing that I know about the knapsack is that it was often discarded just because they were on long marches through the mud, through different types of weather, and it could become, a bit of a burden for a soldier, especially if it was filled with heavy material. Then it would be even more of a burden. But oftentimes it was discarded and then later recovered. So the fact that Special Collections has one today, that kind of tells a story in itself. The fact that it's kind of a, not necessarily rare in the typical sense, but it's a rarer kind of object that you would see in a Special Collections. I think the main way that it can connect us is kind of also like what I mentioned a little bit earlier, is that people from, whether it be 200 years ago or whenever, they're not much different than we are today. I mean, physiologically, we're almost completely identical. Psychologically, there's a lot of traditional aspects of it that are certainly passed down. But I think it really can, especially people younger, college-age kids, especially males, they could see themselves, almost envision themselves of, well, what would they put in it if they were living at the time, if they were sent off to, fight in the Civil War, what would they put in it? And it kind of makes them reevaluate what they find is important and what they would want to take with them. I know oftentimes the Civil War soldiers, they would put pocket Bibles, not necessarily in the knapsack, but they would keep it in their breast pocket just to keep it as close to their heart as they possibly could. So I think there's something to be said there about that. But yeah, I think it makes the present day person viewing the object, it makes them kind of reevaluate what they see as important. So it's in Special Collections. It came from the Reverend Dr. Schlack collection, which I'm amazed I remembered that, because I was struggling to remember the name of it. But that's the collection it came from. My understanding is that he acquired his own personal collection over the years. There was also in the same collection dice and a dice cup from the Civil War as well. I'm actually using that and the knapsack for another, my final project actually, for the same class as this. And the dice, it kind of tie into like what I was saying earlier with the fact that, whether it be utilitarian or if it's just something more recreational, they would just put it in the knapsack and it shows a little highlight into it. But yeah, the Reverend Dr. Schlack collection, he just had a personal collection and then ended up donating it. But it's kind of cool that there's two objects within it that kind of tie together with the overall story or theme of the knapsack in general, I think. Easiest way would be online. If you go to Special Collections at Musselman Library for Gettysburg College, I believe it's in Get Digital, I want to say. And the number to look it up is MS227. That's the collection. And then you can find the knapsack underneath the collection. There's a lot of objects in there. A lot of them are cool. Maybe on your way to the knapsack, you could find a couple other cool ones like the dice that I mentioned.